Hello everyone, welcome to the 51st episode in our AI and You podcast series. Today is Saturday, March 27th, 2021, and I'm your host, Vicar Saidi. I'm a computer scientist, an engineer, a lecturer, and a consultant. I'm also the author of several books. My most recent book is about artificial intelligence and is titled The Genome Affair. The Genome Affair is a speculative work. It examines what the world might be like if some of the more extraordinary capabilities forecast to be realized in AI over the next 20 to 30 years were actually realized today. Given the growing list of frightening existential threats humankind now faces, the book pays particular attention to the impact AI is expected to have on world affairs. The book is available in ebook format for those who prefer to read on a digital device, but it's also available in a high-quality paperback edition. The Genome Affair is available on Amazon, so I hope you will take the time to read it and to leave a review. Amazon book reviews are very helpful for writers. I'm very interested in how science and technology influence world affairs and the big questions facing humankind. Studying at the confluence of the great disciplines of human history, political science and thought, international affairs, science and technology offers a deep understanding and pedagogically important lessons of how advances in human endeavor have influenced and impacted civilization. I'm available to give talks on artificial intelligence and its related technologies, and on the impact AI is expected to have, or is already having, on our world. If you'd like to get in touch with me to arrange a web-based event or consulting meeting with your company or organization, you can find my contact info in the podcast notes below. Please make sure to subscribe to my channel, like this video, and share it with others if you find the content valuable. Thank you. And now, on to today's podcast. In our last podcast, episode 50, I spoke about the importance of AI and surveillance in implementing America's new strategy in the Middle East and its pivot to Asia. In today's podcast, episode 51, I'll talk about whether global government is an idea whose time has come. Let's get started. The notion of global government, a supreme and overarching authority that all the nations of the world must recognize and obey, often draws a visceral response from ordinary citizens and public intellectuals alike. After all, sovereignty and the right to self-determination are ideas that are precious in the hearts and minds of tens or even hundreds of millions, and have largely been won at the expense of blood and treasure. For many, national sovereignty is political dynamite and is not to be bargained away at any cost. But has some measure of global governance become necessary? Although deeply emotive, the need for global governance in the 21st century is difficult to deny. We must accept that it will be virtually impossible to contend with the growing list of challenges before us without an increase in multilateralism, a trend that is unmistakably leading us in the direction of global governance. In fact, today's European Union is an excellent example of what global governance might look like. Although at times contentious and brimming with vitriol, there is no doubt that the continent has benefited from decades of alliances and multilateral institutions, relationships that have gradually transferred some authority and power away from the individual sovereign states and to the Union. Since the end of World War II, the number of security alliances and multilateral institutions that have formed in the developed world agreements that cede some or even significant portions of a nation's historically sovereign rights, continues to grow while millions of citizens quietly benefit. Many countries in Europe, for example, have surrendered their right to a sovereign currency in favor of the euro, while also grudgingly committing a portion of their annual government budget to Brussels for their collective defense. They are also treaty-bound to participate militarily in conflict zones if called upon for this collective defense. As a result, they have experienced historically unprecedented peace and security and economic stability, albeit with a loss of some sovereignty. There are many alliances and multilateral institutions in place around the world for us to consider as potential reference models of global government, with some institutions being better than others, or certain aspects of some agreements so desirable that we might extract them as part of a global model. Consider, for example, the European Union, the African Union, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, the Arab League, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, the Five Eyes Securities Alliance, the most recent Quad Alliance, conceived as a buffer against the rising power of China, the United Nations, the successor to the League of Nations, the World Bank, and the International Monetary Fund. Countless statesmen have argued in favor of these alliances and multilateral institutions, claiming that they have served an enormously valuable role for citizens everywhere, while also preserving peace and security. Even with their undeniable institutional lapses and shortcomings, the consensus opinion is that the benefits have been overwhelming. But there are still those who vociferously disagree and are hard at work in their effort to break free of these global alliances and multilateral institutions. The Brexit process in the United Kingdom is the most recent example. The growing list of deeply worrying problems collectively faced by humankind include the need to regulate the powerful Fourth Industrial Revolution technologies of artificial intelligence, biotechnology, computing, data science, gene editing, germ warfare, and lethal autonomous weapons systems, along with the rising existential threats posed by climate change, ecological collapse due to unsustainable living, and the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. In the 20th century, alliances and multilateral institutions across the developed world worked reasonably well to contain nuclear threats. But as our list of threats grows and engulfs the developing world as well, it will probably be impossible to overcome these challenges without the representation of all countries and an increasing degree of acquiescence to global authority. If we are to refuse such authority, then we are likely to experience unprecedented social disruption as refugees pour out from the world's equatorial regions in the direction of the northern ones, in a desperate flight from rising temperatures, while others flee low-lying regions now engulfed and thus uninhabitable due to rising sea levels. Artificial intelligence, automation, and robotics will also displace hundreds of millions of jobs and will lead to societal breakdown and uncontrolled migration. We have no choice but to urgently confront these issues, and an organization like the United Nations, which by design lacks any authority, cannot lead the way. It must be an institution along the lines of the European Union. The transition to global governance will also come about much like it has in Europe. It will not be dramatic or instantaneous. like the flip of a light switch. Rather, it will be more gradual. But the need for such carefully choreographed governance is acute and is likely to become more so as the current decade unfolds. Those who reject this transition will continue to do so, both politically and vocally, even as their leaders sign accords that in effect cede authority to address these critical problems. Nevertheless, drip by drip, the direction and need is unmistakable. There may be no other way. Thank you for spending some time with me. I'm trying to follow the TED Talk format, and so I'm keeping these podcasts under 20 minutes. Let me know what you think. I hope you'll find these insights into artificial intelligence helpful, and I hope you'll read my new book, The Genome Affair. It's on Amazon. Until next time, then, this has been the AI and You podcast with author Vicar Saidi.